Well, hi and welcome back to a boat called Wanda. So the weather's still been pretty cold over here in the UK, and it's slowing down my ability to get back and finishing the last of the laminating in the bilge. So I still have to wait for warmer days to finish that. So I guess I need to look at what other jobs I can do to keep the progress going. So maybe let's go back to that mind map that I showed you last time and just check where I'm at with my progress. And by the way, because somebody asked me what that was all about, that's basically just called a mind map, and it's on a web portal called Miro.com. I'll put the link down in the description in case you're interested. At the moment, I'm just using the sort of free version. You can pay to subscribe and link it up with teams and all work on projects together, etc. But yeah, for my purposes, I'm just using it as a free version, and it's just a good way for me to sort of get things out of my head and onto paper, and that's what a mind map is. So anyway, let's take a look at where I'm at with that. If I get back to the section which is all about mounting the fuel tank or finishing the fuel tank, that's here. And these are the things that I need to do to complete mounting the fuel tank. I've already sourced the components, I'll show you them in a minute, and I've done the design solution. So there's basically two things I need to work on: putting the mountings on the fuel tank. Before I can do that, I need to complete building the tank. There's one last job there. I've made the plug, done the laminating, attached the fuel pickups. I need to create some feet for it to sit it up off the bottom of that plinth, and I'll do that next. And that will complete the tank side. And then before I can create the mountings and the bilge, I just need to finish off laminating in the bilge by finishing the walls. There's a couple of sections there left that I've got to do, and then apply the tabbing to the front part. And then the bilge is completely laminated, and I can work on creating the mountings in the bilge. And then once the mountings in the bilge have been done and the mountings on the tank have been done, I can mount the tank. So I can talk a little bit about the design of how I want to mount the fuel tank into the bilge. I've given the question of how to mount the fuel tank into the keel quite a lot of thought. My main concern was whether or not the keel would flex as Wanda heeled over, because if it did, what would happen to the fuel tank? It would seem to be a mistake to have a rigid type of mounting solution. Therefore, I arrived at the conclusion that I should come up with a solution that would allow some movement should the keel flex whilst the boat was heeling over. So this is the design solution I've come up with. The black line here represents the cavity space of the keel, and the red outline represents the fuel tank. First, I will create a plate that is perpendicular to the front face of the fuel tank, and make a similar one for the rear side of the fuel tank. I will mount this to spacers so that there is some clearance between the plate and the fuel tank. Next, I will laminate to the side of the keel walls some tabbing that will create a face that is flush to the front of the tank. I will do the same for the rear of the tank. Finally, a rubber bush will connect the mount tab to the keel onto the plate at the front and rear of the fuel tank. These tabbed mounts will control the movement of the tank forwards and aft, with a nitrile gasket in between to allow some movement. The rubber bushes will control the movement of the fuel tank side to side and also up and down, and hold the fuel tank in place should a knockdown scenario occur. Okay, so that's the solution or the design done. Now, in terms of sourcing the components, I've also done that as well. And this piece here is really the kind of what the whole solution is based around, and it's a really nice rubber bush, and I can put a M8 bolt through it. It's got a flange of about 24 millimeters. It's 18 millimeters across and 19 millimeters long, and this has got what they call a shore hardness A value of 40, and this is how they measure the rigidity, I guess, of rubbers. Now, shore A hardness 40 is about the stiffness of an eraser on the end of a pencil, which isn't ideal. I'd probably prefer something like the stiffness of maybe a car tyre, because I don't want the tank to be flopping around too much inside that cavity. I do want to allow some movement, and yeah, I'm just a little bit worried, or I had some concerns that this might be too soft, but if I have these spaced properly on both sides, front and back, I'll end up with about 38 of these. So if we think about the fuel tank, 200 litres, if that was fully loaded with diesel, 180 kilograms. So let's say that most of the time it's 2/3 full, so 120 kilograms divided by 40 of these, so it's about 3 kilograms per one of these. Now of course that's not exact, because depending on the angle of the tank and the vectors and everything, the load isn't going to be distributed 100% equally, but yeah, you know, for a few kilograms for each one of these, I think it's going to be fine. So in terms of getting all of the components together, I've got these stainless steel strips. They're 5mm thick, they're A4 stainless steel. I've got the 10mm, again stainless steel, A4 bolts. I've got all of my grommets. I've got about 40 of those, and I've also got a drill and a tap to be able to tap threads into these, because these will go behind those plates and this bush can mount into it. So that's all ready to go. Okay, well let's get on with the first job then, which is to put the feet on the bottom of the fuel tank. And the purpose of that is to elevate the tank by about 5 or so millimeters off the bottom of that plinth, so that water can drain underneath the tank or around the sides to get to the front of the bilge. Right, so I just want to bed these feet down. I'm just going to put them down with some car putty filler, because it's really fast drying. But before I do that, I just want to position it, because there's a bit of a seam there where there's a layer of fiberglass overlapping the other. So I want to make sure that these are before and after the seam, so that the seam's not making this wobble. So I might just stick these down and do a little dry fit. Well, I'm back in Wanda. It's around 8 or 9 degrees, so I've just come down to hopefully get that last little piece of laminating in the keel done. Although looking at the thermometer here, it's still showing 5 degrees. But yeah, it should just be warm enough to get some curing done. So I've just suited up to do a bit of sanding down there. I'm using my 30mm Makita belt sander, which is the best tool I've found for getting into the bilge and you know, being able to get to tight corners. So yeah, just a little bit of sanding, and then I'll hopefully finish the last of the laminate. Okay, well, all that nasty sanding is done, and I've just prepared it ready to put the last bit of laminate down. And now I think I'm going to show you a first, and that is an awesome tool that Mads from Soul Life doesn't have. And that's a pretty rare thing because, yeah, that guy's got every cool tool I've ever seen in my life, but I've got one that he hasn't got, as far as I know. Let's have a look at that. Right, well here it is. It's a pair of electric scissors which I can use to cut fiberglass cloth, and I think I saw Andy from Boatworks using this a long time ago, and I thought, oh, looks like something that's a bit of a gimmick, you don't really need it. I used to cut everything by hand, and yeah, I just wanted something that was sort of portable and easy to cut cloth on the job, rather than sort of cutting out templates and then doing it on a bench. And because the blades are so small, you can really go around corners and things really easily. And I tried it out at home and just did a couple of quick cuts, and I'm incredibly impressed by it. And there's two blades, one for light material, which I can use here. This is 450 GSM triaxial, and yeah, so I can kind of just cut a piece out, look how straight that is, and then sort of trim it in situ. Need to get this bit of space, don't I? Right, so I've got that last bit of laminating in, and my entire bilge now is completely encapsulated with epoxy resin laminate. So really pleased about that. If water gets in here again, I don't have to worry about it. And I just had that little heat lamp in here pointed at this, and it's 15-16 degrees, 20 degrees down there, which means it's had about 48 hours of hopefully 15-20 degrees. So yeah, that should have cured nicely. I've got a little bit more tabbing to do up around here, but I just wanted to get all this bottom part done so that I can continue on with mounting the fuel tank in here. All this stuff I can do later, it doesn't matter if the fuel tank's already in here or not. So, job for today is do a bit of tidying up, but also to take the fuel tank and sit it down here and do a dry fit. I've just done another dry fitting of the tank in the bilge, and I've started to put together some templates now. So just some plywood here. This is touching against the side of the bilge, so this is where the wall is. Same with that side, and it becomes really apparent on the aft side when you can see the unevenness here, and that's really a reflection of what the keel is like, which is fine because like there's lots of layup that I've done, and the original mould as well was quite uneven. Now I've got a really good match against where the sides of the bilge is, so I can start to put my mounting construction together. Right, so I'm ready to thicken up this plate, which will go on the front of the tank to mount it into the keel. And this is 3mm G10. This is some of that material I used to make up the battens. It's 5mm, so this plus this will give me 8mm of thickness, which will be good because I don't want this plate to be too thin. As an example, if this was the thickness and this was the mounting against the keel and this was the tank and it was moving around a little bit like this, you know, it could actually just shear that that bush. So the idea being that if it's sort of 8 or 9mm on each side, it will allow movement without any chance of damaging the rubber bush. So this is made this relatively runny. I don't want to put too much in and just have it squeezing out everywhere, so I probably just put too much in. Okay. Right. A little bit of mess back here. Nothing that can't be fixed. Okay, so next step, I'm ready to start drilling through those pieces to drill out the 18mm holes so that I can put those rubber bushes through. So let's just unpack what that looks like. Here I've got everything positioned and I'm ready to drill this through now. So I've got on the outside here, there's just a piece of plywood, which is my template, and I've got all the positions marked where I'm going to drill through. And then I've got a layer here, which is the piece that's going to be tabbed into the inside of the keel. And then the next piece here is the sort of face plate that's going to be fixed to the tank. And then on the back side, I've got these stainless steel strips which the bolts are going to fix into, because I'm going to tap the threads here. So I'm going to line this up with the drill press and drill pilot holes all the way through so that I can align these three components. I'm finally ready to put this in. I'm back at Wanda and I'm going to start tabbing in the mountings that keep the fuel tank in the keel there. So this is the back end, which I'm going to do first. I've broken this up into two sections, so this is the piece that I'm going to tab in now. And the reason why I've cut this rear section into two is because if it was just one long section, I'd never get my arm over it down the bottom, because I've got to work right in the corner there. So I figure if I just do this part first, I can get my arm around here to laminate it in. Then I have to put this back a second time and do the second piece, and that'll be the back end. And then I can come back and do the front part. So yeah, it's going to take a few iterations, but here I am, ready to do it. Right, so there's the first piece done. So I put the fuel tank in here, and I actually filled it up with water because I wanted to get some weight in it, because I figured that you know, with potentially 160-70 kilograms in it, it might actually compress the neoprene rubber pieces on the bottom of those feet. They're 2mm, so maybe they'd compress to 1mm. I don't know, I just wanted to see what happened. So anyway, I filled it up with water to get some weight on it, and then I've just tacked this one in here, and I just use car body filler just to get a little bit of a fillet here. So now I can come back and put a proper thickened epoxy fillet here and start to put some tabbing around this, and then do the next piece up here. Right, so come back second day. So I can drill through those holes there, and then I need to clean this up here a bit, and down there.
Dan's big day out to Skegness, where he's hearing.
Right, so I've got a fillet along there and along there, and I've just used some body filler, car body filler, which is a polyester based filler, and it's kind of good because it dries really quickly. It dries in about 20-30 minutes. I just want to tack this in place, and now I can take out these screws, holding it together, remove the fuel tank which I'm sitting on, and then come back and laminate it in properly. So yeah, there's the first section down the bottom and the second section up the top. Right, so I'm ready to tab in the other side of the mount for the fuel tank. Obviously the aft one there is done, so this is the back section, and I've put a little bit of tabbing over this. Obviously it was held down with thickened epoxy, but then I've also put one sheet of laminate over just to help keep it nice and secure. Here are the backing plates that have been tapped, and I've just got some little M4 grub screws here which I'm putting in to just hold the backing plate in place, because obviously once I put it down into the bilge there's nothing to keep this in place, so hopefully these will line up. Right, let's put it in. Well, I'm quietly confident that this is going to be the last time I come down to Wanda to fit the fuel tank in. I've got a little bit more work to do. Let's take a look at that. Right, so one last thing I need to do now is just re-drill out all these holes which have been laminated over. So that's where that timber template comes into play. One of the things I wasn't sure of was whether or not I needed to put some sort of triangular supports here and laminate them in. But this is so resilient and stiff, like I really can't move this at all, so I don't think I need to do anything more here. Great, so this is it. It's a little bit difficult to see, I can't really get the camera down here properly, but essentially you can see that I've got this front tabbing done in place. It's really sturdy and stiff, and all of my holes have lined up so I can put the rubber bushes through them all and then secure them with the bolts. So yeah, really pleased with this. Job done for now. Well, thanks very much for watching and for persevering to see the end of the fuel tank project. This fuel tank has kind of almost been the end of me, really. It's been something that I've not enjoyed, and the reason for that, I think, is just winter, how I couldn't really laminate the keel how I needed to. Jumping in and out of the keel the whole time was really physically demanding, being in a cramped spot, having to do it piece by piece, not being able to get a video in there and shoot video for you. If I was wearing my head camera, all you'd see is the side of the walls and the keel. If I was using this camera, all you'd see is me in the way, so I just couldn't get any footage, and that was making it very frustrating for me as well. So yeah, a whole heap of factors have just sort of made this a little bit of a mental block for me to get over, a bit of a hurdle. And now that I'm over it, I'm really hoping that the rest of the project is going to go a lot faster, and I'll be able to accomplish a lot more in a lot shorter amount of time. The other thing that's happened during the process of this is I've just been through a really nasty sort of child custody application to the courts, and yeah, it's just been incredibly stressful and physically taxing, because it's been so stressful. So mental health and physical health have suffered a lot through that, I think. Anyway, I'm out the other side of that, and the good part is I have every second week with my daughter, every second weekend I mean, which is fantastic, having a full weekend. And it means the other weekend I get to myself, so potentially I get 2 days in a row to work on Wanda rather than just one day every weekend. Yeah, so that's been really good. So yeah, I'll see you again soon, next time, where I'll move on to my next project, which is going to be the water tank. And I'm looking for some feedback and suggestions there, so yeah, stay tuned and I'll see you again. Thanks.